Let's talk about 7 running backs that are priced nowhere near the top 6, but could finish top 6 in fantasy this year. Running backs that could shock the world and help you win your fantasy football league. Starting off with, this name is maybe not the hottest name, but you should draft him if you got a draft coming up in the next couple weeks. Ken Walker. I know everybody's talking about his injury and is he going to be ready or not to go. That is all precautionary, okay? But let me tell you why he could shock the world in 2025. Let's just recap what he did last year for a second. 16.5 points per game, which was a career high. The RB12 in points per game. However, just 3.7 yards per carry. But here's the kicker, and I think this is one of the most eye-opening stats I've researched this entire offseason. Last year in the NFL, there were 46 running backs with 100 rushing attempts at minimum, okay? Ken Walker ranked 44th out of those 46 running backs in yards before contact per attempt. Right there with the Madisons, the Antonio Gibsons, the Devin Singletaries. Think about that for a second. This stat is not on Ken Walker. This stat is on the run scheme and the offensive line. Think about this for a second, okay? Walker, on average, had about 1 yards per carry per attempt before a defender made contact with him. But this man constantly, despite that, turned lemons into lemonade. He was the CEO of Lemonade in 2024 because he ranked first in missed tackles forced per attempt. So yes, the offensive line was not great. The run scheme didn't fit him, but he was constantly forcing missed tackles. It's just he always had to because of what the offensive line was doing. Ian Harditz notes that Walker had the best missed tackles forced per rush season since 2020 in PFF's entire database. Think about that again, okay? Second to last in yards before contact. First in missed tackles forced per attempt. What is Ken Walker capable of doing in a better run scheme? Well, we're going to find out together in 2025 because he has a new offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak. Clint Kubiak runs an outside zone scheme, which is actually influenced by the Shanahan and McVay system. In short, the scheme basically looks to utilize fullbacks and tight ends more in the run game as blockers. So it's going to let Ken Walker shine more in the open field, and he's going to have to do less before contact than he did last year. And Clint keeps talking about how much he loves Ken Walker. And in recent interviews, Kubiak has been singing the praises of Ken Walker, talking about how much they want to get him the ball, saying things like, we'll do whatever we can to get him touches, throwing him routes out of the backfield, throwing him screens. They want to get this man the football. If he was able to average 16.5 points per game last year, overcoming what he did, what could he do in 2025 with a scheme that is actually fit for his running back style? Well, I'll tell you, because we have the range of outcome tool on the Flock site, and we can see his closest year 3 comps and what those running backs did in year 4. Names like Maurice Jones-Drew, Josh Jacobs, James Conner, those are his closest season 3 comps. And what those guys did in season 4, well, Maurice Jones-Drew averaged over 20 points per game. Josh Jacobs over 19 points per game. James Conner was the only guy who didn't improve in their 4th season on a points per game basis. And by the way, this range of outcome tool, that's just one of the many tools you get on the Flock Fantasy website with a 2025 season pass. If you use my promo code LAND, you're going to get that pass for just $34. That's about $1.70 per week for the rest of the season. And with the season pass, you get season-long access to my rankings, both off-season, in-season weekly rankings, and rest of season rankings, all the premium tools on the Flock site. You get 4 vouchers where you can come on the live streams and ask me questions. I'm going to help you with your fantasy team on my live streams. You get access to the best draft guides in the industry. We just dropped version 2 of our draft guide, and there are huge updates. I can't wait for you guys to see it if you haven't seen it yet. And you get the ability to enter real live community drafts with our community members. All right. Next running back that I think could shock the world is Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard is not hot or sexy. You know, he's the car equivalent of a Honda Accord. No one's like, hey bro, I just got a new whip. You want to come? And you go outside and it's a 2012 Honda Accord. But that is what Chuba Hubbard is. He gets you A to B and he does it efficiently. He deserves far more respect for what he did in 2024. He shined in a truly awful situation in Carolina. The Panthers last year were bottom of the league, bottom 3rd in the league in points per game, total yards per game, passing yards per game, and red zone attempts per game. Yet, despite all that, Chuba was able to average over 16 points per game and was the RB13 on a points per game basis on a bottom 3rd offense in the NFL. That is special. He deserves more respect. And even better, it wasn't just that it was all, volume based. He was uber efficient with those touches. In fact, he had 300 plus touches, 4.8 yards per attempt. He had the 5th highest yards per attempt amongst running backs with 250 or more carries, right there with names like James Cook, Saquon Barkley, Gibbs, Derrick Henry. And if you look at that list, all those offenses are great outside of Carolina. If you need a friendly reminder, what they did, bottom 3rd in the league last year. And then this team signs Chuba Hubbard to a long-term extension, showing us that, yes, he can play well, and he's going to be our guy for the foreseeable future. Imagine what Chuba can do if this offense is even slightly better. If they go from 23rd in points per game to 15th to 18th, how much better could Chuba Hubbard be on a points per game basis? And imagine what they can do with an Alpha X like Ted McMillan for this offense. Having a guy like Tatoria McMillan, who they picked 8th overall in the NFL draft, what that's going to do to defenses, they're not going to be able to stack the boxes against Chuba Hubbard. They're going to have to respect the big play threat. That's going to help Chuba Hubbard. And it doesn't hurt that the Panthers have 3 cupcake matches to start their 2025 season. The Jaguars in week 1, the Cardinals in week 2, and the Patriots in week 4. On average, those three matchups alone, last year, running backs that faced those defenses allowed 14.2% more fantasy points to running backs than their typical output. So ask yourself, is the Panthers offense going to be better? If Chuba scored 16 points per game last year in a terrible offense, what could he do this year? Okay. All right, this next one, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into our bag, but I truly believe that this is one of the most underappreciated running backs in fantasy this year, and he's incredibly affordable. That is Isaiah Pacheco. I just want to remind you guys, last year, you guys were a part of the fantasy community just like I was, and last year, he was going 19th overall in drafts on ESPN as the RB7 off the board. So just a year ago, the entire community saw top 5, top 6 upside. They were drafting him as the RB7. And today, he's going around 73rd overall in fantasy drafts. He's ascending in ADP each and every day, but that's because people are realizing, oh, wait, he's going to be the starting running back in a pretty good offense. And I think we need to be on top of that as we're heading into our drafts. We should be all in on Pacheco at this ADP. But even better news, he will be the RB1 on an offense that's projected to be very, very good. According to ESPN Mike Clay, the Chiefs are projected to score the 5th most points per game in 2025. He projects them to have a big turnaround with their offense. And I strongly believe that there's still massive upside for an Isaiah Pacheco. I know it was a small sample size last year, but they were ready to give him the rock. Before he got injured, he was top 10 in carries, targets, and he was averaging 16 fantasy points per game. In that span, again, before the injury, he was utilized more in the Chiefs offense than the Colts used Jonathan Taylor, then the Texans used Joe Mixon, then the Packers used Josh Jacobs. And he's already shown you in previous seasons that he can be a reliable starting running back for your fantasy team. In 2023, averaging 15.3 points per game. And he will perform much better a year removed from the fibula than he performed last year when he came back from that fibula injury. Tony Pollard is the most recent running back that's gone through that injury. That was in 2022. The season after, you can see on your screen, he handled 300 plus touches in Dallas. Same with the last season in Tennessee. But it's hard to look at those points per game because Pollard's on such a bad offense in Tennessee. What could Pollard have done in the Kansas City offense? I do think from a team building perspective, Isaiah Pacheco, you can go RB, your RB1 on your fantasy team round 1, round 2, and then wait on him in your drafts and build out the rest of your team. And he still has tremendous upside in my humble opinion. All right, let's go do a more realistic take here. That is Omarion Hampton, rookie running back. He's in great company historically. In the last 8 years, there have been 9 running backs drafted in round 1. Okay. On average, those 9 running backs finished as the RB11 in their rookie season. So don't be afraid to draft rookies. A lot of people look at my videos and they say, wow, you really love rookies. Yeah, I wonder why. Because they win your leagues every single season. If you look even in the last 8 years, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was the worst case scenario. He was the RB22. So that is your floor. Now, if you look at every running back in their points per game, on average, they scored 16.6 points per game, first-round running backs in the rookie season in the last 8 years. Clyde was the worst, again, with 13.5 points per game. So even in a worst-case scenario, historically, RB22 is the absolute floor, and it's not really the expectation or, what we would expect. It's more of the exception to the rule, right? And let's be clear, Marion Hampton is a far superior prospect than a Clyde Edwards-Helaire, right? I mean, Marion Hampton dominated the combine, a 9.7 RAS score, relative athletic score, by the way. That actually ranks 64th out of 2,099 running backs who have tested in the last 38 years. He dominated the combine. By the way, put up 1,700 all-purpose yards in back-to-back seasons at North Carolina, including 67 receptions, 595 receiving yards in the last 2 years combined. He's not only a threat on the ground, he's a threat in the air. He's a young James Conner, but he could potentially be even better. And Najee Harris, who is his biggest competition, hasn't been practicing with the team since that 4th of July firework accident. Even if Najee returns to practice soon, I think Amarion is comfortably the RB1 in this offense. He has more experience, more trust built with this offense. It's not like Najee's a player that's returning to this team. He's a brand new player to this team, just like Amarion Hampton. So a great prospect with great historical backing and a great offense. How can you not draft an Amarion Hampton with ultimate confidence? I don't care if you have to draft him in round 3. All right. I wanted to give you more of an outshot. This is like the most unrealistic one of this list, but I think the further you go down in AP, that's just the reality. But I wanted to give a shout out to DeAndre Swift. I don't think that top 6 is more realistic, but top 12 is certainly a possibility for him this year. Firstly, the Bears offensive line ranks 7th in consensus rankings heading into 2025, according to PFF and Fantasy Points data. They improved a lot. 3 additions: Joe Thuney, Drew Dahlman, and Jonah Jackson. They joined some young tackles that the Bears already had that were looking pretty good. Besides the O-line, this entire offense has improved drastically this offseason. Ben Johnson, new play caller. They've added weapons like Colson Loveland, Luther Burden. This is all going to help the run game. You're going to have to focus on the passing attack here. Last year, the Bears were 28th in offensive points per game, last in yards per game, and 24th in rushing yards per game. The only way to go is up for the Chicago Bears offense. Thankfully, new additions, Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson is such a great addition to this team. I don't think you guys understand. Okay, so check this out. He has had 2 running backs finish top 24 in every year he was a coordinator in Detroit. In 2022, we had Jamal Williams and Swift. In 2023 and 2024, it was Gibbs and Montgomery. And DeAndre Swift's one season with Ben Johnson in 2022, he had 5 targets per game, so they loved using him in the air, about 14 points per game, not a lot of goal work. But, you have to look at this depth chart and ask yourself, who in the world is going to get touches outside of DeAndre Swift? Sure, Rashawn Johnson's a fine player on the goal line. He'll get some work. Kyle Monangai, I really love as one of my last picks as a late round sleeper. But DeAndre Swift has a firm grasp on this role heading into week 1 of the NFL season. And in a recent best ball draft, I was actually able to grab 2 of these guys in today's video. I was able to grab Amarion Hampton in round 4 and then Isaiah Pacheco as my RB3 in round 8. That's on the Rabbit 10 team, 1 quarterback start 8 format there. The Rabbit from FastDraft, $10 entry, $50,000 prize pool. If you want to sign up, come draft with me. I'm drafting pretty much every night over there, getting into a Rabbit best ball draft. Use a promo code LAND. We'll match your deposit up to $50. Then you're going to get my 2025 cheat sheet that you can print out for your draft and get ready to go with my rankings. Dominate your home draft and get some practice in with some free drafts when you use my promo code. The best ball drafts are not going to replace your home league. It's just practice for your home league. If you love drafting, it's just fun to draft and let it ride. You don't have to manage these teams in season. Now, there are 3 other names I want to quickly mention in today's video. These are guys that I wanted to cover more in depth, but I'm just going to quickly highlight them, and you'll understand why in a second. So, for example, Travion Henderson. Well, if you haven't seen my Guys video, which hopefully my editor can put this up here, I just released that recently within the last week, and he's a My Guy. So I didn't want to repeat too much information, but y'all know how much I love Travion Henderson. I would not be shocked if he's like a week 10 to 18 Bucky Irving type of league winner this year. He's the best receiver, the best rusher, the best big play threat the Patriots have already, okay? How about Caleb Johnson? So Caleb Johnson is joining a system that is really run heavy. The Steelers are constantly running the ball each and every year. In the past 3 years have been top 10 in rushing attempts per game. And now without Najee Harris, they're at the top of the league in vacated rushing attempt share. So the obvious name to fill that is Caleb Johnson. And then as far as Alvin Kamara, he's just fine wine. I mean, the man finished as a top 6 running backs in points per game last year already, and people are letting him fall down draft boards. Yes, he's on the Saints offense. It's not an offense that any of us really want to be associated with, but he is like the weapon in that offense. So I think he's way more reliable than people are giving him credit for. But That is over 7, 8 names that we talked about today. 8 running backs that could shock the world this year, that could finish much higher than they're currently being drafted. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do me a favor, hit that like button to show some love. Subscribe if you found any value in this video, and I will see you guys in the next video. Nothing but love. Enjoy your drafts. Draft with me every night this offseason on the FastDraft app, where there are over $250,000 in prizes waiting to be won. Getting started is easy. Download the FastDraft app, use the promo code LAND at signup to get your deposit match up to $50. That is 10 free drafts on us. And when you finish your first real money contest, I'll send you my 2025 rookie report and season rankings completely free. Check out the link in the pinned comment to start drafting today.